Okay, welcome back to another Between the Pages book chat. This is a rescheduled chat, and our guest today is author Wally Jones, who's going to talk about his book, Sam the Chosen. And I'm going to turn it over to him now and let him introduce himself. So take it away.
Hello, everybody. I am Wally Jones. I am the author of Sam the Chosen. It was the 2022 Reader View Book of the Year. It also just won a Firebird Award as well just recently. So that's kind of exciting too.
Mm.
Um, you can buy it anywhere, any retailer. I always suggest go to Amazon because they always have good sales and stuff going on, and it comes right to your door, simple and easy. I don't want to plug Amazon, but it's simple.
Yeah, and you can find description in the description the links to the book. So if you want to check it out. Anyway, so we'll start the chat and give everyone a quick overview of the book. What's it about?
That is a extremely difficult question to answer without really giving it away. And I get asked that a lot, and they want this synopsis of a story. And to give a synopsis is to outright almost tell you the story because it is a thriller. And at least two or three times in that book, the reader's just going to go, wow, and that's part of why it wins kind of some of the awards because of that kind of shock value. But what it is, it's a woman named Sam, um, and she's very much kind of every woman. It was a huge learning experience for me writing this story. I had a really good time researching uh, womanhood, femininity, the whole thing, and it's very patterned after my wife, and I spent a long time studying and learning, how mindset, and I have a very female view. I was raised mostly by women, and so I have a very kind of a female kind of a mindset, and so it's kind of easier, I guess, to kind of slip into that. And she is this every woman. She's mom. She is a wife, she is a teacher, she is all these things rolled up into one, and she has this kind of a selfless sense about her, and she's very kind of set in her ways. I think like everybody is, all adults, we are set in our ways, and then through a series of events she realizes that the world isn't the way she thinks the world is. The world's actually this way over here instead. And it's a drastic change of life, a drastic change of everything. And that's when the book just opens up and things start going. They go fast. The book just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and it ends up being a very fast read. It's 300 and something pages, and the people say they've read it in just a day or two, because once things change, once she starts to figure things out, it just escalates so fast. So without giving much away, that's what it is. It's this woman Sam who figures out how the world really operates. Um, and what it does is it kind of questions humans' stewardship of our planet. Have we done okay? Can we do better? What are we facing? What are we looking at coming in? And it's a very kind of a First Nation, or very kind of a Native American kind of feel to that aspect of the book, which is exactly what I wanted. I grew up. It's set in the mountains in North Carolina, and that's where I grew up. And you can't really be in that part without kind of having a very Native American um, learned kind of mentality, because it permeates everywhere. It's fantastic, and so it's very questionable about which is what she learns. Have we done okay? What is going to happen? And this is what she learns as she kind of progresses.
Okay, so you mentioned Native American influences. Were there any other inspirations for the book?
Um, yes, the Native American influence is primarily that of the chosen, And when you read it, that'll make a whole lot more sense to you. Very very nature oriented. And the other one, honestly, for Sam is my wife. Sam suffers from horrible anxiety to the point where it just shuts her down. She can't really do anything. And my mother was that way, and my wife is that way. When they trigger, whatever that trigger is, and they enter kind of that panic attack mode, it's very kind of shut down, and their body just don't function anymore. And so that's a big part of what of what Sam is, and her. Not only does she learn things, she also learns about herself and how to overcome this, and how to beat that, and kind of better herself through that. The other influence is me. I am fully dyslexic. I am 100% fully dyslexic. My brain misses the encoding and decoding. So technically, I cannot read or write. It is beyond me. I cannot encode and decode words. I can't do it. So I use a sight vocabulary that I've learned over years to do this with, and so that's been a big a big push behind me, it, to get a dyslexic writer to that level. Can we reach this level up here? And certainly we can. It is thought that F. Scott Fitzgerald was dyslexic. Dave Pilkey, who does children's books, like Captain Underpants, and I think yeah, Dog Man. I think my son loves those. He is well known dyslexic. So I think we can. It just takes us a lot longer to do so. And so for me, that was my thing through this is I want to do this to prove that this can be done by dyslexics.
Yeah, so the book's also dealing with mental illness and certain disadvantages. I don't want to say disabilities, disadvantages as well. So that's interesting. So, how does the character deal with it, and what are some of Sam's other characteristics?
She is, I think, her biggest characteristic, honestly, is her her selflessness, her very her very motherly instinct, and how she leaps in without thought to herself. She just at one point, one of her children are in trouble, and without thought, without reservation, purely instinct, she just head rushes in and just goes. And I think that's true about a lot of parents. It's probably true about a lot of people. Um, but I think it's especially true when it comes to moms. They're the ones that, bar none, they're the ones standing right by, thick or thin. And I think that's very much who she is. Um, and I hope I brought that out in the book to show that as a this is a true quality, and it's one that she exhibits in spite of, as you were saying, her disadvantage or disabilities, whatever you want to call them. Certainly, a mental impairment is a good way. I think both, yes, anxiety and dyslexia are the two leading um, disorders or disabilities, or whatever you want to call them. So it's I like that aspect, that she does that despite of this, and I think it's very relatable. Not only for women, I think it's relatable for a great many people, because a lot of people, they understand that, and they suffer with many of the same issues.
Yeah, and true. So, what was the hardest scene for you to write in the book?
There was a point in the book, I'll be honest with you, I had to stop writing for about 5 months. It was just painful. I can look back at it now, and it's not as painful now, but at the time, it was just it was just so difficult and painful for me to write. I would sit and write and cry, and I was like, I can't do this. I gotta stop. Ugh. And I would write like two sentences because I'd have to read what I wrote, and then I could write a little bit more and be like, I gotta stop. So I ended up quitting for like 5 months just entirely. I didn't even look at it. I didn't turn it on. I didn't nothing. Um, I don't want to really say too much about it. When you get there, you'll know. You're like, it's one of those moments that hit you like, oh boy, you know. But it was it was brutal. It's hard to get past. I've had I've had a lot of people um, approach me about that particular thing, and have kind of the same response, kind of a that was really rough. Wow, holy cow, that was, you know. Um, and I've had a couple people just downright angry with me, and they they just scream up one side and down the other. Man, they're just, how could you bother? And it's the story. I can't stop it. It's the story. I don't want to get into it. It's when you read it, you'll understand it, and you'll understand why. But it was extremely difficult. And granted, this was my first book. Um, it was my first published book. I actually, the Sam the Chosen is actually the first book in a series of books that will be coming. I actually wrote the third book first, and it's more than half done, sitting, waiting for me to return to it. Um, this was the first book I kind of cleaned and polished and went through the whole, publishing, stuff. Um, and so I think it hit me harder being a first time. I think in later books, it probably won't hit me as hard. You kind of grow and learn as you progress in your, art. Um, and so future books, it might not hit me as hard, but for this one, it was brutal for me. It was very hard.
Okay. So what was your favorite scene to write in the book?
Ugh. Um, I don't know if there's a I don't know if there's a favorite scene. I think there are many. I think all the interactions, there's primary characters. Obviously Sam is a primary character. And people have a hard time when you got main character. That I kind of wrote the book as kind of a literary experience of whether or not we can get past main character. This is your protagonist. Can there be several characters who could be seen as protagonists, depending on your point of view? Sam is certainly one of them, and the story is about Sam. It carries her name, and is her journey going through. But certainly there are several others. Grandi is a lead character, and Grandi actually progresses the story forward. He moves the story. He moves Sam's progression forward. So he's a very good choice. And obviously Nichek, another chosen character, Nichek. Um, it all comes down to Nichek. It's all Sam's growth is directly related to Nichek, and so it all any three of those can be seen as your protagonist, as your main character. And the scenes I had the most fun writing were the interactions between these three, um, because they operate on different levels. And so some would be talking, this way, and some would be talking that way, and there's a level of just not understanding because they can't Sam hasn't reached their level yet, as well. And that's what this is. This is Sam's progression into how the world really operates, this chosen sort of a way. And it's fun with their interactions. So anytime they are on a scene together, their interactions together, I had the best time with that. Um, because it's just so interesting, kind of knowing what the chosen know and then educating Sam to their level and doing it in such a way that the reader follows along and understands, but in such a way that it is thrilling to the reader to be like, oh, now it makes sense. Oh wow, So these interactions, which is how the book is really told, is in this kind of a, not really a narrative way, but in a through these interactions with other, that to me was the most fun. There are many of them, so I don't think I can pick a single one. But in general, those interactions together, that was a very very good time.
Okay. So the fantasy elements in the book, are they more of a mystical, mythological, or are they some what you'd call more traditional?
I would call them more traditional. The book crosses a lot of genres, and it's a difficult thing to kind of put your thumb down on. And so it's been labeled in a great many ways: epic fantasy, thriller, urban paranormal. There was a dark something in there, whatever. And I'll outright tell you right now. Chosen aren't human. They appear human, but they're not. They're, for lack of any better word, they're actually lycanthropic. So they can appear human all they want, but they're not. They're actually a pack of wolves when it comes down to it. And this is their understanding that Sam doesn't quite understand, because she sees them as human. You're a guy walking around. You're a bit eccentric and odd, but you're a guy walking around, and she doesn't quite understand that these really aren't humans. So that's where the fantasy aspect comes from. Is this element of these lycanthropic type creatures, and then the other fantasy element is this. It's not really dystopian yet. It will get there by book three, which is where I started writing. In book three, it is outright, hugely dystopian and like, holy cow, now the world is like, wow. But this book sets that up. This is why it had to start here, because it sets up that coming thing, and then the other books will be after that to kind of get back to more of a normal thing, I suppose. Normal. So it's highly fantasy, highly fantasized, with obviously with lycanthropes, and obviously a pending doom of of nature of some sort.
Oh, cool. So, you've written a fantasy book. Are there any other genres? Apparently, the fantasy book has other genres in it as well. Are there any other genres you'd like to try in future?
Yeah, I didn't know I was doing that when I did that. All I do is sit down and write, and then everybody else, so like Kirkus Review, they loved it, and they're like, this is actually a blah 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 blah. Like, I had no idea. I didn't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
you'd be surprised how many writers go like that.
Good, I'm not the only
Yeah.
one. um, you know, everything I write novelish, and I've got probably four or five in various forms on the computer in some way, and I have some short stories in various forms that are going to be up on my website, and I can give you that address later. Um, they end up being all fantasy fiction, all of them. For my website, I write oddities, is what I'll call them. Whatever kind of flashes in my mind, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool, and I'll write that down, whatever. And some are just like odd memories, and Sam, like myself, this is a big part of me about Sam. Sam's a big audiophile. I'm a huge audiophile. I got music on 14 hours a day, and so a lot of us music dedicated, and that's not fantasy or fiction in any way. That's just my musical whatever. But mostly, yeah, I would say I'm a fantasy fiction writer.
Okay. Do you have, speaking of music, do you have a playlist you use when you write?
Um, yeah, it's called Serious.
Oh, okay. So
But
basically, you just listen to anything that takes
you
your
know,
fancy at the time.
it's funny when you start talking to people about music, and the very first thing you're going to hear from anybody is they're going to say, "Oh, my musical tastes are so eclectic. It's so, I haven't met anybody near me that had anywhere from classical to country to 80s to new wave to, I mean, you name it, it's everywhere." And on my serious, I probably have probably 17 different stations on my thing, from 70s easy listening to, I mean, you name it, it's out there. And I'll sit and write and be changing stations, and whatever comes on, then I'll change stations, whatever comes on, on my phone. Last time I counted, I had like 1100 songs. So if I listen to my own music, then okay, but Sirius is so much. It's out there. um but what I can't do, I can't listen to anything that makes my brain think. So, like, I can't turn on, like say Jimmy Buffett, because what I'll end up doing is I'll end up singing along with Jimmy Buffett, and then I won't write anymore because I'm singing along with Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, that's exactly why I don't listen to music when I write,
Yeah,
'cause I would do the same thing. It's like, doesn't matter what it is, I'll just sit and listen to the music.
and you're happy. You're
Yeah.
happy and listening, and yeah, yeah. So I gotta have something like, yeah, which is classical, or something, and it just kind of, go, and that way, because otherwise you're just bebopping right along, and next thing you know, it's been 3 hours and I've got one page, like, you know. So yeah, so it's usually it's serious radio, anywhere in the car, at home. It doesn't matter where I am. It's usually serious radio of some kind. It's the best money I spend every month.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here, and I'll let you tell everyone where they can find you and your books.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Like I said, I think the best place to buy the book, in all honesty, is Amazon. Just Sam the Chosen. You'll find her on there. You can reach me on Facebook. It's Wally Jones on Facebook if you wish. You can also find Sam the Chosen on Facebook. I think it's actually a business site, so it gets kind of strange. I might need to change that over again. Or you can go to the website. The website is theprophecystoryline.com. All one, prophecystoryline.com, all one word. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm also on um, LinkedIn, and they're on the website as well. I think Twitter is at Wally Jones, and I think LinkedIn is also Wally Jones. So it's, and you can, they're all linked right on the website, theprophecystoryline.com.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure
Thank you.
chatting with you,
Thank you. You too.
and I'm glad we could reschedule.
I'm
And
very sorry about that. Thank you so much.
oh, no, no problems. Emergencies happen, and that this gets booked out months in advance, so you never know
Oh,
what's
sure.
going to come up. So, and well, this will be going up on Saturday,
Okay.
and so we'll be having hopefully having our regular one the previous Sunday. So there'll be two this weekend, and so join us
Absolutely.
for more authors on Between the Pages, and you can find the book and the Amazon page link below for Wally. And thank you, and bye for now.
Thank you so much.